Hello, my name is Titi Fora. I'm the creative director of Inu Design, and I'm also the curator for the Ecobank Design and Build exhibition taking place at the Pan-African Center on Ozumba Mbadiwe. It is my pleasure to invite you to this year's exhibition. I'm immensely
and how we live. As you may know, this is very important, it's very timely. Everything we do now affects how we live, so there has to be intentionality. Hence why we have all these amazing speakers coming to speak to us. Now, this particular panel session, it's the theme, the topic for this session is design in the future. And we have very, very amazing young speakers. I'd like to introduce my first speaker. He is the executive chairman of Space Finish and Campus HQ companies that are redefining the future of work by designing and delivering functional innovation. It's also human-centered across different spaces in Africa. With a mission to foster productivity and efficiency, he leads a team focused on creating work environments that support how modern-term teams live, work, and thrive. He was exposed to some of the world's most thoughtfully designed workspaces when he was a team lead at Google's Sub-Saharan Africa, and that has inspired a lot of the work that he does today. Ladies and gentlemen, a big, big round of applause for Remy Dada. Please, a round of applause for him. Yes, so coming up next, we have an interior designer, and she's also the co-founder of Siriano, an interior design firm based in Lagos, Nigeria. She is a graduate from the University of Manchester with a degree in accounting and finance. She, however, decided to do a complete career change, and between 2011 and 2012, she worked with design companies, and then she later decided to go and study interior design at a very, very prestigious university, where she honed her passion and creative talent for design. She co-founded Siriano in 2017, a company whose mission is to provide beautiful and functional designs for all spaces. Ladies and gentlemen, please make welcome Adewumi Adegbola. Please a round of applause for her. And my next speaker and final panelist is an award-winning Nigerian filmmaker, contemporary artist, designer, and creative technologist, recognized globally for pioneering work at the intersection of storytelling, culture, and technology. He is the founder, CEO of Slick City Media, and the executive director of Generate, where he leads innovative projects that merge African futurism, artificial intelligence, and immersive media to reclaim and reimagine African narratives. He has a groundbreaking project, the Elder Series, that sparked global conversation on aging and representation, featured by major international platforms and institutions. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for Malik Afegwa. All right, please another amazing round of applause for my amazing panelist. Let me introduce myself too. Hi everyone, my name is Jumoke Pinero, team lead Impact Studios Ecobank Nigeria. A round of applause for me. I'm very excited about this panel, and here's why. I remember when I went to speak to one of our amazing panelists, Adewumi, and in her talk, she was just like, don't worry, AI is not coming to take your job. Because it almost seems like everyone now is so scared of whatever job they're doing. It doesn't even matter what field is in, their job is in. But they're just so worried that is AI going to take my job? Would I have a job next week? I personally think it's not possible. But we're going to hear from the professionals, people that have put in the work over the years. So please get ready to learn a lot of things. But before then, a big round of applause for them again. I'll start with all of you right now, but of course, ladies first. You know, for many people, a space, now I'm not just talking maybe your office, I'm saying a space, it could be your office, your workplace, your home. What is a space? How would you define a space personally?
A space can be anything, to be honest. I'll just describe a space for me as a designer as any canvas that I'm given. It doesn't matter what the space is, an office, kitchen, home, whatever. Just any canvas that you're trying to do something with, and that something can be anything.
And for Remy, workspaces are very personal to you. And I would say that, I mean, now we're seeing things, people improving with how they make their workspaces very conducive for their staff. How would you describe an ideal workspace?
Can you guys hear me well? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I think it needs to be a little more audible. Yeah.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so I think that historically we always focus on how the space influences the occupants. But I am very passionate about how you put power back in the hands of the occupants. So we are talking about spaces that actually bend to the needs of the users. So whether it's a dynamic space or the space actually evolves based on how you interact with it, like we're talking about automation, right? How a space serves you, right? So I think that we are in an age where it's becoming a lot easier to have a space actually help us achieve our goals. And we are not just always confined or constricted by the actual four walls. So that's my vision of what a space should feel like.
All right. Malik is very much futurism, artificial intelligence. So I think that your definition of space will be very different. Because, I mean, how many of us are going to work these days? How many people are really going to work? So for you, how would you define space?
For me, it's sanctuary. You know, that's how I see it. You know, somewhere that I have to be comfortable, but also somewhere that I could think freely. You know, personally, if you come to my office, you think you're in some kind of spaceship because there's gadgets everywhere, and that's how I'm comfortable. I like to see, you know, things that inspire me. So a space for me has to be inspiring. If I'm walking into a space and I'm feeling uninspired, I'm not going to be there for longer. So that's why I know interior decorators or designers are very particular about colors, particular about shapes designed in a particular space, because that inspires something, you know, or a particular feeling. And to me, it's very important. So yes, sanctuary is what I would say. Yeah.
So if we're speaking about space, now and in the future, we're looking at things like functionality, we're looking at things like flexibility, right? How would you say, let me start with Adewumi. Speaking about smart homes, and for you, you combine working, you know, in homes, even in workplaces. So what would you say is the future of spaces, people's homes, people's offices, like, say, 5–10 years from now?
Sorry, can everybody hear me? Yeah. Great. I feel like the most important thing about 10 years' time is the reality of the fact that it starts today. So the future is now. And I don't really see smart homes changing in 10 years' time because of smart home requirements. A space is really dependent on what a person that is going to use the space needs. And like I said in my introduction video, this theme of this exhibition this year is so spot on, saying how we build, how we live, because if I do a space for somebody today that is tailored to how they live, it will still be valid in 5 to 10 years' time, smart home or not. But my thought process about smart homes is it all depends on how the people that use the space live and how they want to interact with their space. So what I will do for one person and what I'll do for the next person that wants a smart home will be completely different, and it will be based on their day-to-day life and their requirements. The changes that the smart home will bring will be dependent on how, if your lifestyle changes in those years, really. So your needs is what is going to determine what the smart home is going to, what smart home requirements you're going to be given.
All right, thank you. Malik, again, your futurism, your AI, and we see things like the Western world really inspiring things that are happening here. I mean, to a certain extent, our traditional, tools and all that are coming back, but there are a lot of things that are happening that people are just getting from the Western world, whether or not it works with us as a nation. It works with the Nigerian people or works with the African people. So how would you think that design in the future can possibly happen without us losing our culture and our heritage? Because beyond just saying culture and heritage because it sounds cool, it actually is really, really good for us because that is us and that is our core.
Okay, that's a very good question, and thank you for asking. So let me take you back a little bit. First of all, this AI system we're talking about was not trained with Africans in mind or black people. So the kind of history that you have within the AI space is biased and is highly misrepresented. But what's the reason for that? Is data. Where is the data? What is the data? You think about that, for instance. So we've lost a lot of our cultures when it comes to communal living, architecture, and a bunch of things here. If you go into Lekki, for instance, almost all the houses look the same. They have the same look and feel. Why is that? There are many other things that we've lost. There were mud houses that you don't need air conditioning in the past. There's a reason it was like that. It was built in a certain way. But that's the design language for that one. So everything about what we've lost is not in the AI systems today. We have to impute them ourselves. So that means we have to tell intentional stories, have intentional designs that reflect where we're coming from to know where we're going to. For instance, if we don't put out our intentional stories that reflect our cultures, the artifacts, the symbols, amplifying NCBD, for instance, all these kind of things, we need to train design language into the AI systems so it understands what we are, who we are, or where we are. But we don't do that because most of the time when we're telling stories, we're just telling stories from a place of we're just trying to make money sometimes, but we need to be reflective of our cultures within what we're doing now, because that is what AI is going to be trained on. And we're getting into a space that will be called AGI. AGI is Artificial General Intelligence, where AI systems become autonomous and they make decisions by themselves. So the question you would ask also is, where will we be in that time? Are we going to be trying to catch up? Yes, we will, because right now nobody is actually thinking about training data sets, building data centers that house our own data to create innovations for us. So in the future, we need to think about today first. What are we doing today, right now, to amplify that? So what we need to do today is amplify everything that has to do with what we know about our cultures into our design languages or whatever we're doing that will help, the future we're trying to get into. But beyond that, it's not going to happen.
So this next question, just based on what you said now, is for every single one of you. People talking about AI now, a lot of people are very fine with AI. It simplifies work for them, or it makes things faster. And then there's a school of thought for some people that genuinely cannot stand AI. They feel like it makes people lazy, it's stealing your information, and the whole works. But what I want to ask you is, and I want every single one of you to answer, friend or foe? And why? Why would you say AI is our friend and, the plus, the benefits of AI? Because at the end of the day, it's here and it's here and it's here to stay. So how would you say that people can use AI to their advantage, and not see it as their enemy? Because for some people, they would say, if you're not using AI, you don't know what you're doing. And for other people, it's like, I don't want to be lazy, I want to think, I want to, do you know what I mean? So, friend or foe, and why? I will start with Remy.
Well, so AI is a tool, and any tool can be used for positive things and negative things, right? So I'll say it can be both based on usage. But I'll talk about our industry in the design space. A lot of times I see people get a bit nervous because they feel that AI is about to replace them. And I always tell people all the time that if you're afraid that AI is about to replace you, it's probably going to replace you, right? How do you go from being a creator to being a curator, right? Because at the end of the day, if you don't know the right kind of prompt to prompt the AI, then you are the one just receiving the information. But if you see yourself as a curator, you have your idea, and AI is just a means to achieve your vision, right? AI is supposed to remove all the mundane tasks that you don't want to do and give you enough mind space to actually be very creative, right? And I think a lot of times as designers, we spend 80% of our time doing things that's very repetitive, right? And we never get enough time to be truly creative. I think we are going to see the highest level of human creativity because of AI. Now, there's also a cautionary tale in that narrative that if you are using AI in the wrong way, you might lose your critical thinking. You are not applying yourself, or you're thinking of AI as the end game and not as a means to what you're trying to achieve. And if you zoom out on a more global scale, there's a lot of risks that AI can truly pose to the global landscape, right? But I'll say that's a conversation for a different day. But as it relates to us, it's an ultimate leverage tool that I believe and I advise everybody in this room to invest in. And I'm sure you would second that.
So, Adewumi.
AI, friend or foe? Honestly, I agree with Remy. I think that AI is both. And honestly, no, AI is neither friend nor foe on its own. It is the use of AI, how you use it, that then helps you decide whether AI is your friend or foe. And I'll use a very, very basic example to describe this. I believe that we all remember what cameras looked like in the 90s. It's different from what cameras looked like in the early 2000s. And then we moved to smartphones, we moved to mobile phones from the telephones that were giant and had to be at home, to phones that we could move around with, to now iPhones and Samsungs and all these phones that have impeccable cameras. But I don't think that any photographer is afraid that the iPhone is going to replace his camera, because it just all depends on how you use this thing. Yes, a photographer with an iPhone can take a much nicer picture than I can take, but he's not trying to replace his camera in his professionalism with it. So I don't think AI on its own is either, because you're also the one that is feeding AI the information that is going to give back to you. If you haven't had a proper conversation with your clients about how they want to live and how you're going to build, you're having the wrong conversation with AI and it's giving you the wrong information. We all get tired. We're creating for people at the end of the day, so we all go on Google and on Pinterest and all these things to get inspired. So I really find it so funny why people have decided that AI is where they draw the line, because we also have to remember that that is not where technology draws the line. And like our technical partner has said today, there's AGI coming, and then there's going to be AGI plus and all those kind of things that are still to come. So if you start getting bothered by AI as much as you are now, then you're just going to be chasing pavements. It doesn't negate your creativity in any way. I think it can only enhance depending on how you use it. We must always still remember that, yes, there's AI, but plagiarism still exists. And there are many other people I don't know how it works and I don't know how it gives its feedback, but I'm also certain that because it is a computer and because it is programmed, one other person in this world might have received the same feedback as you. So it is only to inspire you, and it is not something that you lift and put into your documents or put into a presentation and then sell to somebody, because you actually didn't create it. You had a conversation, it inspired you, then you need to go back and create. So I think AI is a friend if you use it right.
Fantastic. I was going to call you your name, but she said technical partner, and I like it. You have to tell us friend or foe. I'm guessing friend for you, obviously, but why?
It's your friend, but it can be your foe. I'll explain, and I'll tell you why. The future we're getting into, when people say, will AI take your job? No, but someone using AI might take your job, yeah? That is fact. Also, we need to understand, like you said, it's a tool. It could be used for good or for bad, depending on the user itself. To me, it's a blank canvas. And for the past, 3-4 years, I've been able to juggle a lot more than I could do. Like, I could never even think about the kinds of things that I'm doing today if I wasn't using technology. For instance, I am a storyteller, I'm a filmmaker, but I'm launching a fashion collection in November, co-created by artificial intelligence in Barcelona. I haven't even launched that collection. I already have been booked in Casablanca to show the collection that I have not launched yet. And that is because I was able to show this thing. All I did was sketch a few things, and I have 1,000 different variations of unique fashion designs based on my sketches. So you could amplify your work with AI. It's not to replace you, it's to amplify what you do. You could train AI systems on your own experiences, your own data to create stuff based on what you know, based on your own experiences. You could even copyright it. So I use it as a blank canvas, as part of my pipeline when I'm creating something, not as the final output. Like you rightfully said, you could put in a prompt, it could give you a result, someone somewhere else can get that exact same result. But what makes your work different is if you're actually telling it exactly what to do and putting yourself into the narrative. Now, technology would always win, whether we like it or not. It will always grow. Before books, there were scrolls. And when we were about to get books, people were, saying, why will you have books? That you could just open the middle and read, but with a scroll, you could start from the beginning to the end. But books came. There were e-books. Before scrolls, we had what? 10 commandments in the tablet. Think about it. So things are always growing, whether we like it or not. So we don't have to be scared of technology. We need to be at the forefront of it to know how to navigate it, because we are getting into a space of misinformation, disinformation, and a lot of scams. How would you protect yourself if you don't even know how or what this technology is, or how to differentiate these things? So you need to understand that just experiment for the sake of knowledge, even if you're not utilizing it, so you're there. So I would say it can be a friend, but also can be a foe, depending on where you stand. But for me, 100% is a friend. Yeah.
Please a round of applause for him. Adewumi, if we're looking at the future, we have to look at proper structures. We've been talking AI, but let's look at what is happening in our country, Nigeria. If you watch any ad, any real estate ad, anything at all, you're just hearing premium, you're hearing luxury. Maybe might look it, but like you said, they all look the same. But if we're speaking functionality, the quality, it's not there. The house just looks nice. Maybe it's white, and it's white, and they have because some people don't have big windows, they have big windows, and they have the same interior decor. Do you know what I mean? For the future, how are we trying to ensure that what we term luxury, what we term premium, is actually premium and luxury?
I've decided that I'm not going to use the word communication to answer this. I'm going to use the word collaboration. And the reason why I use the word collaboration is because it just spans across so many different parts. As designers, you need to realize that your expertise does not make you, it doesn't mean that you're not teachable. So the reason I say that is I'm designing for somebody. I am not going to use the space. I can boldly say that of the hundreds of projects that I've done, the only one that I have designed that I will live in is my home. So I don't expect to see every single thing I have done and love it because I didn't do it for me. And so the way that we can make sure that everything doesn't look the same is if you do it for the owners. You can't afford to not collaborate, understand that you're collaborating with your clients in doing their space. They are actually the first designers of their space because they know what they want. They know how they live. They know what they want to do in their home. They know that their children like sports. They know that their husband likes to swim. You don't know all those things. So if you just come with what you think is pretty and is Pinterest worthy, that's good for your portfolio, but it's not good for your clients. And your 6 clients are going to just have the same interest worthy home, but they're not happy living there. So I think that it's important that we recognize that the huge importance of realizing that you're merely a collaborator in the game of somebody else's space, if it's their office, if it's their home, even if it is their kitchen, because you help people understand what they want to put priority to from when they tell you. And the conversations don't have to be design conversations, by the way. I think that what we do at my company, Siriano, that makes us not create repeated homes for people is that we have non-design, because we say, what do you want your house to look like? Honestly, if your clients knew that, they won't come to you. So they don't know what they want their house to look like. They don't know what their design style is, but they know how they live their life every day. They know that I'm an early bird. I wake up very early in the morning, but my husband is not a morning person. He's quite nocturnal. So you are going to go back with all that information of the day-to-day life and create a space that is perfect for both of them, the person that wakes up at 5 o'clock doesn't bother the person that is still going to sleep, because you have created space for them. When they're telling you, I want a really, really big kitchen, you tell them, well, your kitchen doesn't have to be really big because you don't like to cook, but we can create a small space for you where you can have maybe your morning quiet time while your husband is still sleeping. So I think it is the understanding of your clients and understanding of the fact that you are just a collaborator, and just because you're an expert, you don't know more than the person that's going to use the space.
Thank you very much. Remy, let's talk about the ideal workplace. Now, as we know, like I said earlier, not everyone goes to the office anymore, but there are people that still go to the office. Now, if you're designing an office in the home, what will be the ideal setup? And even in the office as well, there are some people I know that want to have break time and they want to sleep, they want to have somewhere to crash. But personally, as a boss, I don't know that I want that. Because me as a boss, I feel like I might sleep longer than I should. So what is the ideal workplace, for someone who comes into the office every day? And if you're one that works from home, we've had so many errors that you're having a team meeting, and then somebody walks past, maybe somebody's husband walks past shirtless, or somebody forgets that their camera is on, and then they're just, doing so many crazy things. So moving with the times and seeing where the world is going, what is the ideal workplace, be it in your home or in the workplace?
So again, it's not an either-or type situation. So look, work has changed and has really evolved post-pandemic, right? And the home is now an extension of your office space. And you ultimately have to design for the outcome. What is the outcome that the user is looking for? Are you designing for productivity? Are you designing for comfort? Is it for collaboration? Is it for rejuvenation? Right? So you need to start to think about designing spaces in a way where you can guarantee a particular outcome beyond just the aesthetics. Right? Now, when you think about the outcome of your solution, you begin to understand whether your office space should look like your home. How do you blur the lines between your work and your home? You now have to understand how things have changed. We are in an era where you have Gen Z, you have Millennial, you have Gen X, all in the same office. Different backgrounds, different cultures, but they have to coexist in the same space and they have to be productive in the same space. So we have to design for the different types of people and the different modes of working. So you said that you don't want to put a nap room in the office, right? But depending on the kind of work they are doing, if your people are up to midnight working, you would want to put a nap pod in the space. If you are creating a banking hall that is all corporate and official, you don't want to do that. So very early when we started my company, Space Finish, a lot of clients will come to me and say, I see the office you designed for Google. Give me an office like Google. And we'll say, we can't give you an office space like Google because that's Google's office. We'll give you an office that will meet your brand. And then when you begin to dive into the challenges and pain points a business is facing, you're thinking about what's their long-term strategy? What is their growth? What is their brand alignment? Who are their stakeholders? How do they collaborate? What type of meetings do they have? Is it town hall meetings? Is it one-on-one meetings? Is it virtual meetings? Once you really understand the different departments, different types of people, the ways they collaborate, you begin to create the type of space that will service them and allow them to achieve the outcome. And one last thing I'll just mention for everyone in this room that is a designer, you see, in this part of the world, designers don't get enough respect and credibility, right? And the reason why is because a lot of times we talk about design from an aesthetic standpoint. Once you begin to talk about design from an outcome, go to a CEO and tell him that, look, this office space would allow you launch your product faster, grow your sales, increase your productivity, and net you X million in profits. They begin to price your services with the outcome. And until we begin to do that, you would never get the same respect that other service providers provide, like lawyers or doctors. So, yeah.
Thank you very much. Please a round of applause for him. I think we can all answer this question, but I'll start with Malik. How do we avoid designing cities, future cities that only fit the elite? And here's why. You see that a lot of the really nice houses that we see today, I'm not talking about the ones that we've just said all look alike. I'm saying the nice houses that we see and we really like, they are for the elite, right? And that's because they have the resources, you know, to do that. But realistically, a good number of Nigerians are not in that class, right? So how do we avoid designing a future where it's only the elite that have good homes? Because every other day you hear that this house collapsed. Why? Maybe they use substandard materials, or the design was just not. Because you can go, you would see, I mean, we've all seen videos and pictures of house hunting where when they take you to the house, the bathroom and the kitchen and what other space are all, you know, there's no concern for the person that cannot necessarily afford to have that dream house. So how can we build a future in Nigeria where, fine, I'm not the elite, but even where I am, I have a decent house that has been designed for my pockets and is still functional, and I can still live a normal life without, if I have to shower, I have to stylishly do it so that the water doesn't splash into my food in the kitchen. Malik.
That's funny. But I think personally, for me, it's quality control, really, on many different levels. Also, who is building, who is designing? You know, do they have the qualifications to do that? Do they have the experience, you know, for that? And why are they doing it in the first place? I know we have a space problem in Lagos. I don't even know if it's a problem. Maybe it's just, you know, the people working in that are trying to save money. I don't even know. Maybe you guys can answer that. But I feel like somehow we're always trying to manage space. You know, look at the buildings, look at everything. But beyond that, most of these things don't last. You would build today, in a few years, you can see that it's already, you know, coming down. So how do we, you know, have quality control? What is the quality control? I know of ISO 9000. I don't know what is in architecture, stuff like that. So I believe we need to implement a certain level of not just controlling, but also monitoring it, a way to also, what's the word I'm looking for? Not renovate, but service it, like go back to it and do some work on it if it's necessary, or if not. But what are the tools that we're using to even build in the first place? Are they going to last a number of years? Are they been tested, stress tested, all of that? So it comes down to quality control, not even technology, not even, and the personnel that are working in that space is, yeah, that's my point of view.
All right, thank you very much. Remy, you have to speak on this.
So I think it's also, people mistake great design with expensive spaces. I've been in some very expensive spaces that look very shitty. And I've been in some places that are very, very cheap but are designed perfectly. And it really comes down to, again, what is the value of design? And I don't think we appreciate that design is everything. The car you drove in today was designed. The space you are sitting in, the clothes you are wearing, the jewelry you are wearing. Design is just that thing that captures human imagination in a way that serves people's needs. If you get an amazing designer that sits down with the person that they're designing for, and they understand your budget needs, they understand your space constraints, they understand your habits, right? They can create the type of environment for you that is perfect, even though you don't have all the money in the world. Because it influences the kind of materials you choose to use. You can source materials locally. You can recycle materials. There's so many options for you. So let's get out of this world where we feel a great design is an expensive design. And the other thing again is, let us also get out of this world where we feel a great design is a Western design. So Malik mentioned how you had mud huts that served a particular purpose for this client, for this climate. We have to get to a place where our designs are very localized to meet the needs of the local occupants. And we really need to appreciate our Africanism a lot more and understand that we are going to be the only ones that will design the solutions for ourselves that allow ourselves to thrive. So that whole, all the houses in Lekki look in a particular way, I don't want to knock what happens, because we have to separate a service provider from a product developer. Developers are creating products. They have a market segment. They have targeted that segment. They are in it for profit. So they are saying, what can I provide this base that meets as many touch points as possible to get as many buyers? But that's a very different conversation from if you are providing a professional service. So both worlds exist, and we just have to be very, very specific as to what we're trying to achieve.
Adeomi, I have to ask you as well, because, you know, he said that, everything he said, at the end of the day, people don't know that, everyone thinks that for them to have its type of house, standard type of house, they need to have money. And that's why you see that even after they've shown you the house where your kitchen and your bathroom are in the same space, you're out of options, or you think that you're out of options, and you still go for it. So what do you think that needs to be done differently now, so that in the future, and not just like 10 years, 15 years, I mean, even in near future, people can live in homes that are affordable and are still quality?
So I think it's really, this question you've asked is actually really, really sad for me, because the real answer is that we need to change our mindset. It's actually a people problem more than anything else. So I am an accountant by my first degree. I loved the idea of interior design from my first year maybe, but I was born into a Yoruba, very, very typical older Yoruba dad, so there was no quitting for me. I had to finish that, and then you can figure this whole carpenter, whatever it is you said you wanted to do, which was his thought process at the time. And I had to go through a 3-year degree, come back, and then work for 2 years. But for me, the quality of where I was going and where I am still going 10 years, 20 years from now started then. So I could say to myself, I spent all this time during my degree, can't be bothered to work. What's the big deal in interior design? Watch a couple of videos and start doing it and putting some pillows here, putting some flowers here. But I need us to understand that you cannot do things for people to live in, to work in, to go. Different families come into a space from 9 o'clock to 5 o'clock in the morning without being a professional at it. And you can't just throw property into the market just because you stumbled on a bit of capital. The idea of a civil engineer hiring, it just seemed expensive. It's not expensive because people are bored and they don't have anything to do. It's expensive because there's big value and there's big quality that comes from getting an expert to look at certain things. We'll all walk into this property and we can tell that it's structurally bad, but it's cheaper than the last place you wanted to rent, and it's slightly smaller and it looks nicer, but you know that that place has not been professionally done. You said let's have quality control. Lagos State does have remodeling permit that you should have. They have building permits, but we all know what we do as Nigerians when it's time to get those things. But we need to stop running away from the things that have been put in place for us to get it right, because at the end of the day, that call that you made to somebody that you know to get you out of paying whatever you needed to pay for approval, to make sure that the building is quality. It wasn't just because, yes, sometimes the government is just trying to take money, but trust me, they are going to send people to check the structure of what is being built for you. And it's the same thing as a designer. I have a lot of people that say, I want to do this place and I want it to be really nice. Okay, what's your budget? I have this budget. That budget is not going to work, because if you think fire safety alone, fire safety. I'm not spending my money on fire safety. I'm personally, my partner and I are not taking that job, because I'm not going to have you call me at 2 o'clock in the morning and start screaming, fire, fire, AC is burning. Yeah, that's why you need fire safety and not my phone number. So I think that we all just need to walk away from trying to cut corners from ourselves, so that when you see something that has been put in place for quality to be controlled, you don't pay it to tell someone because there's a reason why it's there.
There's a round of applause for her. There's so many trends that are happening now in design. What is that one trend that you know for a fact, and this question is for all of you, needs to stop in the future? I'm sure that there's one. Think about it. 5 seconds.
Everything.
Say it again.
All white, everything.
Thank you very much. I agree.
It's not a beach party, please.
I
Let's relax.
Before I was like, oh yeah, they say it makes the space, it makes the space look bigger. But I feel like it's not just white. There are too many other colors.
I don't think that, I said this to somebody, like a client, not somebody. We spent a good, almost a month trying to choose tiles. But we chose the rest of the tiles, and she just went back and forth on choosing the tiles for the general area. So maybe this was going to do living room and the general part of the house. And I had to call, and I was just like, look, I've not really been a part of this process, but I can just see that you guys have been picking tiles on the group chat with you for so long. What's going on? Oh, I just don't want to pick the wrong thing. It's the one that's going to be everywhere. And I said to her, no single element has the power to control your space like that. White cannot single-handedly make your space look bigger. If your space is small, your space is small. So you can't put pressure on one element because it's going to make the space look bigger. You have to do, if you have all whites in your space and there's no natural light coming in from outside, there's only so big it can look. So yeah.
Remy Dada, before I ask you, of course, what that one trend is, earlier we had a panel session and someone had brought something up saying that now in a lot of houses, and now, even some office spaces, the windows are so small. And he was, I don't know if he's here, but he was genuinely so concerned. Why are the windows so small? I'm sure you know what we're talking about. Normally, you would like to see a home with a lot of windows, cross ventilation and everything. And he's just like, not everybody has an air conditioner. What is happening is this, according to him, is this the new trend? Because you just see one long, tiny, small window. And in my mind, I'm like, if there's a fire, that's the end. Not everybody can make it out through through the door. What is this? What is this problem? What is this trend? Before you give me your own trend, because that's not Expo for you.
Well, so windows, glass, frames are more expensive than cement. So people who want to save would always minimize how large your windows are. And if you want to have an entire facade that's all glass cladded, you can, and it will look very beautiful, but it'll be very expensive. So when you find yourself in a place where you're seeing very, very small windows, unless it's some part of the architectural style, it's usually around cost efficiency. That's just the honest truth of the matter, yeah.
Yeah, it's very sad. So what is that one trend that you really need to stop, in future? You don't want to see it in the future at all.
I don't have any particular trend that needs to stop. I think there are things that are overdone and overplayed. But I think the more important conversation is people designing from a place of originality versus just hopping on trends, right? And when you hop on trends, you end up in a place with a lot of lucky homes. And if you look at Nigeria over the years, you see that the architecture has been evolving, but it hasn't been evolving based on anything that's local context. It's been evolving based on what they are seeing globally. And like you said, it's also a mentality thing. I'm sorry to say, fellow people in the room, we tend to also not appreciate our own culture. And if a designer brings you something that you didn't see in Architectural Digest, you say it's nonsense, right? So that tension forces a lot of designers to propagate these trends that we see in the market. And ultimately, once we begin to design from a place of originality, designing for outcomes based on the local context, you would see some really amazing things. So for example, there's a project that we did for a client called PwC, right? And PwC was looking for an innovative lab, an innovation lab that was very original. And to achieve that, we did a lot of research into the history of the nation. And we created a space that we called Afrofuturistic, that you would never see anywhere else. It's a completely different design language, right? And that space that we created allowed them to as a brand, feel very proud and say our innovation lab in Nigeria is better than the one you guys have in San Francisco, because it's very authentic and it's very built for purpose. So to eradicate the trends, we have to become a lot more original.
Thank you very much. Please a big round of applause for him. Malik, before you give me your trend, you know, if you're looking at some of the stories that other people tell, they can't tell our stories like we do. What are you doing differently? Because whether we like it or not, there's still people in 2025 that think Nigeria or Africa looks a certain way, right? And, you know, in the real sense of it, if you take somebody from Lagos and you take them abroad, I mean, you know, an exposed person, it's fun, but it's nothing, it's not a big deal to us. But people over there, some people over there don't think that Lagos or Nigeria or Africa, especially if they've not been here, they're exposed to what they're exposed to. You know, it's what they know that they think about. They don't know us beyond Stone Age. You know, as a storyteller, what are you doing differently? There's so many things happening in Nigeria, you know. I mean, we see the whole Dirty December, even though, you know, we want things to be better, but people want to come home now. People are happy to identify with Nigeria. But those are our people. What are we doing for people that have never experienced us before, and they can only dwell on what they see? You're a storyteller. What are you doing differently? What do you think has not been done?
Thank you for that question. That's a great question. I feel like there's something I always get when I'm working with international clients. They ask me, you're Nigerian, you're in Nigeria, what are you doing in Nigeria? Every time. And I'm always wondering why. So what's the expectation, first of all, and the perception they have of Nigerians as well? And I look at it from the point of view of America today, they have good PR. And the reason why is because of Hollywood, storytelling. They shaped everything that has to do with America. Good PR, intentional storytelling. We don't tell intentional stories in Africa. We tell it from a place of survival. You know, it's okay to escape. It's okay to make people laugh or talk about the rituals or whatever, or blood money, but we also need to create an aspirational space that we want to go to. Everything we see today in sci-fi, AI, robots, everything started from a story, from a film, from a book. Then the scientist or engineer saw that and brought that to life from the 1930s. Whether you like it or not, that was the first time it came up. You know, so we need to be aspirational with the kind of story that we tell. What's the future we want to go into? Okay, even if we want to change Nigeria, to what? What are we aspiring to? So that has to be in the kinds of story that we tell. Beyond that, we need to look at the fact that we don't have the right types of data being recorded. I was looking for data when I was trying to create the Elder series that's putting other people on the fashion runway. And I was getting impoverished Africans every time. I had to literally train the data set and a neural network with 16 years worth of data to get one good image. That's a problem. That's to show you, yes, this big tech, they're doing what they do. I don't blame them because they are not African and they are not from here. So we have to do the work. We have to own our own technologies. We have to be in control. So I started to create something called a large language model, African large language model from scratch. So I'm not going online to scrub for data. I'm going to physical spaces to collect data, scan, archive, and train large language models. Started with Ikorodu, for instance. So I went to Ikorodu. I never knew there were 7 active monarchies in Ikorodu that have been around for over 500 years. I didn't know that. In my entire years in school, nobody taught me that. So I went there speaking I was with a translator. And I didn't go there because I wanted to go. Someone introduced me to the whole, thing. Say, come with me, let's do this, let's do that. Then I got involved, And I was speaking to them, teaching them about AI, teaching people that are mostly traditionalists about how their data would be used if I use their data. What is even AI? How do you even play a role in this space? These people never documented anything. All the artifacts, everything was never documented. They were telling me that their grandfathers told them it's a secret, that they can't show the world this secret because they have to preserve it. I'm like, if you preserve this secret, someone else will tell your story for you and it's not going to be accurate. So you have to tell your story yourself. Then they agreed. So that's part of the education that I do as well. So I'm not just going to affluent places or bookstores or libraries. I want to go to the subcultures as well. Because even in the AI systems, yes, we talk about Igbo, Yoruba, Hausa, but what about the other languages as well? They're not being recorded. So personally, what I'm doing is trying to collect all the data that I can. And the funny thing is, I'm not storing any of this data in any cloud system because I have to control it. I've had investors come to me from outside the continent and I've said no, because I have to control it as well, because it's not about money. Because if I don't do this, then we're still going to be making the same mistake we've been making all over the years, going back to the colonization that we're still trying to come out of. But now we're in a digital space and we don't have control over anything. It's a big problem. We need to do something about it. So right now, we don't have data centers to even train this data, but let's even collect the right data. Let's tag the right people. Let's understand cultures. Let's be represented properly. Then maybe we could start to innovate for us. Because it's not just about creativity, it's all about medicine, finance, every other industry is involved, and everything has to be data. So first, let's record the right data, collect the right data, and use that to tell intentional stories about ourselves for the future.
All right, thank you very much. Yes, please.
Just to add to what Malik just said, storytelling is super, super important. And the reason why is because human beings, the way we learn is through stories. So with the right kind of narrative and story, you can influence people. So you spoke about Hollywood, and it's true. The US government spends billions of dollars to ensure that in every Hollywood movie, the US Army is never represented wrongly. You never see the US Army losing wars in movies, and it's by design. Now, you spoke about searching for data and finding impoverished kids. So before I started Space Finish, I worked at Google. And at Google, while as an employee at Google, one of the critical things that we also realized is that when you search, you see this sort of things showing on the Google platform. So we had to internally ensure that algorithm was showing all the amazing things that Africa has to hold. But now that we're moving into an AI world, AI is just taking data that already exists on the internet and is training it on that data. And if that data was already biased and we already had a lot of misrepresentation, then that's only going to continue. So it's super critical what Malik is doing in gathering data, right? Because the data, controlling that data allows you to tell the right story. But in all our individual lives, we have a role to play in this way you represent where you're from. It actually matters a lot more than you think. And you see nations that have transformed themselves, whether it's India or Singapore. What type of stories do you hear from them? And you should think about that as we are communicating to the external world too.
Thank you very much. Please a round of applause for him. Sorry, we can't hear you.
The inception and the foundation of photography in Africa was not for anything creative. It was for colonial reasons. Go back to the pictures and go back to the history. That foundation matters to this future today. So you need to understand why we need to tell intentional stories. If you go back and check out the images, we were photographed like prisoners. This is fact. You're not going to find that on Google. You have to actually do the research for it. So if the foundation is that bad, we need to change the future. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much. Please a round of applause for them. So you mentioned earlier, Remy, that we need to appreciate local materials and all of that. Now let's talk about designing the future. A future where people don't necessarily want to have furniture from, foreign countries. Because where we are now is some people, if they don't see the foreign furniture, because you could go to furniture shops and you see all the foreign names, because they know that that is what people like. What are the things we have to put in place so that we can value what we have, right? We have the talent in Nigeria, obviously. What can we do that in the near future, people are like, oh, I really want to have, whose name can I use? I want to have a Maria's piece in my house, right? I mean, we're getting there with some things like artworks, right? We have so many art exhibitions here, and you see people buying because they want to identify with these Nigerian brands, Nigerian creatives. What are we doing for design? You're designing somebody's space, for example, and you're telling them, look, the best that you can have is so and so person from Kano. They have the best work. How are we going to get there as a country where we appreciate ours before we even look outside?
So it goes back to storytelling. Because at the end of the day, what is a brand? A brand is a story that you bought into. Whether it's Nike, the reason I wear Nike sneakers and not Adidas is because I buy into a Nike story. So the reason why somebody would say, I want a Herman Miller chair, for example, is because they bought into the brand. So I would say beyond quality, because quality is also a factor, beyond quality, I would advise all the amazing product designers who are developing products to also invest in brand development so that you can command that same level of desire for people to want to choose your product over other global products. And there's also a thing of Africans feeling that if they acquire a product that is westernized, it helps their social standing too. So we need to get to a place where people feel that if I acquire something that's local, it helps my social standing. And it all goes back to storytelling, right? Sorry, that's the answer.
Malik, you have a lot of work to do. It all goes back to you. You have to keep telling our story, please. Adeomi, please, go ahead.
I think for me, so if I use an international furniture brand as an example, one of my favorite international or Italian furniture brands is called Parada. And I like that Remy said it starts with storytelling. Why is it my favorite furniture brand? It's not for any other reason than I actually really did buy into their story. I remember maybe 2-3 years ago just going on a factory visit with them, and you can see everything and it looks nice, and it's always looked nice. And I was like, oh yeah, it's nice, but what makes you different? But then the guy started telling me the story about how, they're so particular about their wood and the environmental conditions is, the world is changing, global warming, everybody is struggling in different ways, trees and all of that. So they have their own forests somewhere on the outskirts of Italy on the way to Paris, and they grow their own trees. And with all the environmental conditions that they experience today, if literally everything goes to shit, they have enough trees to produce furniture for the next 100 years. I think that and obviously that is a massive brand, so 100 years is a bit of a stretch. But I feel like it's so intentional to design in the future. You have to know your story. If you're building a brand, or if you're a product designer, or if you're doing anything, you have to know your tomorrow from today. How far do you want this brand to go? Yeah, I hand make or I crochet all my things by hand. That is really, really nice, and it's a beautiful story and it's adorable, but how does that work in 10 years' time? How are you going to scale that to become something that is actually not just worth people buying, but at the end of the day, I like your crocheted handmade pieces, but I need 20 of them, and I wish I could wait for you to use 50 days to make each piece. But how do you standardize your process and your story of your brand to now become something that is scalable? I think that is the biggest problem that we have with African products. Like, we do things and they're beautiful, but we don't do them with the future in mind. We just do them for today. I know how to knit, I know how to crochet, I know how to make this table, but how are you going to make this one table 100 times the same way? How do you create? So I think that a lot of us also have to become a bit more generational in what we love. Like, if you see that, like he said, you go to these places and they're like, oh, this is a family secret we're not allowed to share. Well, that's the thing, it's going to die with you. You can't not be able to share these beautiful stories. So your grandfather is really good at this thing, and he does it by hand. You now need to work with, and that's why AI is actually your friend, because you need to figure out, how do I translate this thing that my grandfather can make by hand to something that I can standardize and sell in the hundreds or sell in the 200s. So you have to think of your tomorrow from today. Are you trying to build something that is unique and there's only 5 of them in the world? That is nice, but they're hard to sell, because if you're selling only 5, you're selling them for $100,000 to be able to make any money. Or are you trying to make something that you can sell to the Nigerian markets? Because we're also running away from those big numbers. So you have to be able to make them in large quantities. So it's figuring out how to scale up. But that means that you have to think of your tomorrow before today, from today.
Thank you very much. Please, a round of applause for her. I want to speak about functionality in the future. I've been to so many spaces where there are really nice things there and everything, but they're just there. They're not doing anything. Adeomi, I remember being in your space, and then there was this chair, and I was like, do you let people sit on this? Because it just looked like me, I wouldn't let anyone sit. And she's like, I won't have pieces that are not functional. Now, looking at the future, looking at functionality, creating spaces that are functional, what do you think that we're not doing now, or lots of people are not doing now, but we need to consider? Because beyond just things looking so beautiful in a space, aesthetically pleasing, they also have to be functional, right? What do you think we're not doing now that we need to ensure that we do?
This might sound really cliche, but I just think that we're not having the right conversations about how we live. Because what's functional to you and what's functional to me is different. So if my designer has the right conversation with me about how I live, my space will be functional for me. You may visit my house and find it non-functional, but it has to function for me. And so I think that what we need to do differently is to have the right conversation. Again, not design conversations. They're not coming to you. I mean, if I go to Malik today and I'm like, oh, I want to create a virtual space of my show flats so that people can see it on the internet, he's not going to start asking me gigabytes and megabytes, because if I knew, I'm not going to come to Malik. All I know is that I want to create a space that people can see on the internet. The rest of it is down to you. So you need to ask people, you want to create a home that does what? What do you do in the morning? What do you do in the afternoon? What do you want to come back home to? So I have clients that say, I want to be able to talk to my house from the office. And I need to, if I'm tired, I need to be able to let my house know that the lights need to be off. It's possible because I know how you want to live. But I'm not going to suggest that to Remy because Remy doesn't want that. Remy likes to switch off his lights. So having the right conversations will teach me how to make sure that the space is functional to the person that is going to live in it.
Thank you. Remy, if you could just give us one principle, very important, that you feel, look, if we're looking at the future, a better future in design, we must abide by this principle. Maybe it's been working for you and you think you can apply it to others. What would it be? I like the way you're smiling. You're about to drop wisdom.
Oh, I don't have the answer. So I think that we really underestimate how much our environments can influence our lives. Your space can kill you, literally. You don't have the right fire safety codes, your space can be the cause of your death. Your space can reduce your stress levels. Your space can make you sleep better. Your space can reduce your anxiety. Your space can make you money. Your space can empower you to be more creative. So the core principle that I always think of is, what is the outcome of this space? Not what does the design look like. I tell clients all the time, aesthetics is just a byproduct, but what's more important is what is the outcome of that space. And if everyone begins to think about that, you would begin to not only gain a lot more reverence and respect for what you do, you begin to impact lives in major ways. So the way we calculate impact for us, so we've worked on 2 international airports. We say about X million people have flown into the country through the space. And if people had a bad perception of the country and they stepped into this space and we told the right story, maybe we've impacted X million people. If there are over 100,000 employees that have been to our office spaces, and because of that, they want to come to the office, they're more productive, the business makes more money, then we feel like we've driven impact. But the impact is always outcome-based. So I'll say always design thinking about the outcome, and everything in between is just a means to the end.
Thank you very much. I know I have questions. I have people in the audience that want to ask questions, but please let's keep it short. I'm giving you 15 minutes. Just 15 minutes. So if you have any questions, do I have my mic ready for anyone? Fantastic. Good. So if you have any question, please raise your hand. Remember that window I was talking about? The person that was very angry about it is here. He has a question again. All right, so please, if you have questions, please raise your hand. Okay, he was the first to raise his hand. Please give him the mic. So let's keep the questions very precise and clear. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. I've learned a lot today. So I hope you don't mind. I have a question for everybody. I hope it doesn't take too much time. So for Mrs. Adewala, I wanted to ask you. You spoke about you studied a different course from your current career. So I wanted to ask, what was your journey like in finding your own path, and do you have any advice for anybody who is trying to do the same? For Mr. Dada, I wanted to ask, you talked about brand identity and innovative designs. I wanted to ask, so for anybody who's designing and a young designer coming up, there's a like you've discussed like people clients who want white rooms and small windows and all those things. As a young designer, a young architect coming up, what advice do you have for dealing with clients who want the generic things when you want to create innovative designs? And I'm, I'm, I'm also asking if that has anything to do with your brand and your brand identity, and how can you shape your brand identity towards the kinds of designs and that you want to see in the world and that you want to have. And for Mr. Defuba, um, we I know that you have a lot of diverse interests. You're into filmmaking, fashion designing, and I want to I I also I don't want to say struggle, but I also have a lot of interests, and I struggle with finding direction and focus. So I wanted to ask, how do you handle all these interests, and how do you excel in every single one of them, and have your own identity and voice in everything? Thank you.
Wait, please clap for him. Clap for him. Please. It's not easy. And I hope everyone heard his question. So if your question is similar to his own, don't raise your hand again. He has already asked 3 questions. And if your question is similar, don't, you know those people in class that will be annoyed. Who is this person? He's one of them. But please clap for him. Clap for him. Very intelligent questions. I love them. So we'll start with Adewumi.
I think the beauty of answering this question today is that I can answer you better than I would have answered you then. When I was experiencing it, I didn't enjoy it at all. I wish I could lie, but I didn't enjoy. I felt stifled by my dad in a way. God rest his soul and God bless him. But I felt stifled in a way. I was like, well, I kind of know what I want to do, and I'm sorry that you've paid for a year, but is it not better now? And let me just come out of what I'm doing and then go and do what I actually want to do. But I think that, so very quickly, I finished my degree and then I worked in a design company because, again, even after the degree, he needed to be sure that there was money in what I wanted to go to before wasting his money going back to school. I did all of that. I came back from school and I set up my own company, sole proprietor. I had a random interior design company for half a minute, because I can't even call it a year or anything. We barely did anything. We barely made any money. We'll have one odd client that maybe my friends have begged and said, please just try this, my friend. And then I had a friend that I met when I was training to be an interior designer. He was an architect. And so when I had projects and I was struggling with some technical things, I would invite him to help me. Maybe I'll make 1 million naira on the project and then end up paying 800K fees to the architect that helped me because. And then one day we just woke up and then he'll have an architectural project, but he needed some interior design details, so he'll hire me, spend about 80% of his profits paying me. And then one day we just asked ourselves, what are we doing? What are we actually doing? And I think that question, asking each other that question, came from my business and finance background. So there's so much that I'm able to achieve, yes, interior design, but there's so much that I'm able to achieve in my business today that comes from the background that I have and not walking away from that degree. I can boldly say that if I wasn't an accountant by profession, I don't really think that Siriano will stand the test of time as it continues to today. So whatever it is that you're doing now, finish it. Even if you have a passion project, don't back out of it, because it also means that you have some confidence in that if your passion doesn't work, you can dust up your certificates and try again.
Fantastic question. You didn't follow the rules. You asked 3 questions. I'm going to try to give you one answer that answers all 3 questions. So I believe that in life, forget what people tell you in life. Your earliest job is to discover yourself. And the only way to discover yourself is to try many things. And to try many things and to fail at many things. And failure is actually part of the process. In school, they told you that failure is bad if you got a bad grade, but in life it's different. You have to fail to grow. You have to fail to learn, to improve, to know what is good for you and what is not good for you, right? Once you fail enough, you figure out the thing you're actually good at doing, right? And you stick to that thing, and you do it long enough, you get better and better and better. And at some point in time, people start asking you, how did you figure out what you wanted to do? And it's just a life journey, and everybody faces the same journey. You might not know, my first career was to be a rapper. And I had 2 mixtapes. And I was convinced I was going to be a rapper, right? I've tried writing stories. I wasn't that great at writing stories, right? But ultimately, I studied architecture and I quit. And I went into tech, worked for Google for many years, and I somehow can't even believe it that I'm doing this right now, right? So you need to discover who you are through failure, and you need to embrace failure and growth. And at that point in time, you get enough traction and you figure it out. And then once you know who you are, you can now understand the path that is right for you. Because if you don't know yourself, how can you choose your path? Because you choose your path that's aligned with your strengths. So I hope that's helpful, but that's my answer for you. Thanks.
So yes, you were asking how I juggle everything that I do. So I didn't start with everything. I started from somewhere. Believe it or not, I studied business in school. I didn't do anything creative in school. I didn't do anything technological in school. Everything that came after, and I taught myself most of it. But I was always, one thing that I do is when I pick a skill, I want to be the best at that skill that I do. I want to know how it works. Why does it work? And I get to the peak of it. So when I started in film, I had an editor that used to tell me, oh, he's tired, he can't edit anymore. You know, say he's hungry, I have to buy him food before he goes. I learned how to edit myself. So I now grew from editing to animation to graphics to cinematography to all of that. Personal interest, you know, set up a company, then I train other people. Then I move on. So I'm a storyteller, so everything I do kind of work hand in hand with each other. Technology was a no-brainer for me. I'm a futurist, so that means I'm always looking for what is happening 10 years from now, 5 years from now. I've always been doing that. Personally, I'm already doing that as well, you know, to forecast the next 5 years. So I've been in the AI space for 8 years, before AI became a facade. Virtual reality, all of that, so I'm always looking to the future. So when it actually comes, I'm ready, then I train others. So I'm not personally there doing everything. I have people that are doing it, I just oversee most of it. As a human being, I'm a brand on my own, that I do stuff, passion project, but I couldn't do that until I got to a space where there's balance, there's structure. You know, if I'm shooting a TV commercial today, I don't have to be on the set. I have directors that could do that for me. If the client decides, oh, he wants me to direct, then I'm there. You know, so anything you're doing, from my experience, try to be the best till you're comfortable enough to add another skill to it. But make sure whatever you're adding to it works hand in hand with that as well, so you're not confusing yourself. That's the best I can give you.
Thank you. I know I saw a hand. Yes. I don't want to call you a window guy, but a window guy. Please can you give the mic? So after this, I'll take 2 more questions and we're done.
Mr. Remy, firstly, I want to appreciate you for the jobs in MMA 2. I was there, and in fact, it was fabulous. I actually put in for space as an all this intern architect, but I was not actually picked. But
don't worry, we'll pick you after this. Don't worry.
So you talked about cost. I think cost is not easy. This idea came from all this. I just go back, let's say 20 years ago. Now imagine I am in Manchester. a house you are building in Manchester is different from a house you are building in Liverpool. Why? Because of rain in Manchester. Everybody knows Manchester is highest rain. So they build high pitch roof, right? Now in Nigeria, somebody is coming from Sweden and he said, oh, I saw this small window in Sweden. Forgetting we are in temperate zone in Nigeria. Now, I just want that thing in that Sweden to be here. So when they brought it from Sweden, like we as an architect, we felt money first before any other idea. So you don't want to change the mind because there are thousands of architects that will actually, it's 5 figures. I can do it. So I believe it's bounced down to the architect itself. We are not actually, what should I say, giving the clients professional advice enough because of the money we want to take. And again, it also goes to the schools. While we are in school, if you decide to, there is a particular software we call Revit, and you are doing massing. So it was the day I did massing, and the lecturer was like, it must be 4 block. Yeah, prove it. You know all these old architects they have. So when you start to do another thing for your lecturers, come on, just know that you have F9. And you know his design. Once you fail in design, next year you are still coming back. So I believe it's our lecturers that actually hindered that creativity. So by the time you have this mindset of just doing a block design, okay, even if you get outside, the creativity is lost. So you don't have to, okay, let me do orange, no, you can't even think of it because it is what you've been doing for 5 years professionally. So I believe the two things actually comes. Cost is the least of it because we know how much they are selling those casements, 600 windows. You will know cost is not even there. 2000, we are building with louvers or even these sliding doors now. They are 1 2 by 1 2. Are they not expensive? No. But these ones, this casement they are doing now, is totally rubbish. And if you look at even the roof is just 1.2, 1.5. We know our roof to be high pitch roof, waterfall all through. But now you just see, even if you are entering the roof as an electrician, you just fall down with the POP. It is the roof, the headroom inside the roof alone. You cannot even work to do your conduits and everything. So I believe it stems from the architect. We the architects, we are not giving them, okay, that thing you saw in Sweden, that thing you saw in Malaysia, it can't work here.
Ask me a question.
He just wanted to air his views. I told you that he was passionate about it. You know, I said he was very passionate about it. Oh, please, another round of applause for him.
So, let me say something. So thank you for that information. Now I know better. But I would say that to the challenge that you mentioned, which is similar to his question around influencing your clients to listen to your advice, I think that if you see the work we do, you would tell that not every client is going to accept the work that we do. When you start off, let me be very real with you. When you start off, you're going to do a lot of jobs you don't want to do. But it's okay because you are gaining your reputation, your experience, and your traction, right? When you build yourself to a certain level, you get to a point where you start to turn down jobs that don't make sense. And you start to look for the types of clients that align with you. Not every client is a good client. So we fire clients all the time because not every client is the right client for you. So you get to a stage where you find the right type of person and you can now begin to express your ideas, right? So don't be in a place where you are overly upset that a client wants a particular type of window or roof. If you're still, that's Swedish, right? If you're still early on in your career, that's a grind. You're going to do a lot of those kind of jobs, but stay at it. And you get to a point where you begin to call your shots and pick your own clients.
All right, please can you hand in the mic? Please, very short, very, very short.
Thank you so much. Okay, please, I need to refer to the last comment. You know, it says something about F9 from lecturers. Yes. I'm so sorry. Well, I'm a lecturer, so I need to react to that. Now, I think there is a need, like not all lecturers believe in that. I don't anyway. So, but I think there should be a pressure from practitioners. We need to pressurize the system to change the way we do things. We must focus on our schools. The curriculum must change. Implementation of our curriculum must change. And everything starts from here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please a round of applause for him. I see more hands, but I'm so sorry. As you know, we have another session, so I can only take one last question as I promised. And I think the last hand I saw... Wait. I'm so sorry. Please, can you give her the mic? You can catch them after I give you permission. Find them and catch them. So, final question, please.
Okay, so I'm very grateful for the presentation. And my question goes thus: how can Nigeria reduce fake products and make people trust the originality of Nigerian goods and cultural materials, both locally and internationally?
Did you get the question? Should she ask again?
Yes, please.
Okay. How can Nigeria reduce fake products? Like, you know, some people make fake products, even if they are the original ones. So, and make people trust the originality of Nigerian goods and cultural materials, both locally and internationally.
Yeah, so it's really, so I would say biggest way to address it is regulations. The right type of regulations protects industries. And if you don't have good regulations, then those things will happen. And also education and information. If people are better informed and they can spot a fake product, there's less incentives for people to actually go buy it. And there's less demand for your fake products and people are going for the original ones. Guys who are doing fake things won't succeed in the market.
Do you want to add to that? Okay.
I think the reality of it is fake, well, copies are very, 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 very difficult to moderate. There's only so much control that Nigeria as a country or as a government can have. I mean, we'll be deceiving ourselves if we want to act like Nigeria is all there, right? And so there's still a lot of things that Nigeria is working towards and trying to build. So if countries like the US and Italy and Australia have not been able to control fake products, I don't think that Nigeria can control fake products. I think that Nigerians need to be a bit more original and authentic. So we need to stop copying products that already exist because there's so much that Nigeria needs to achieve, and I don't think that they're going to be able to go to Aba or Alaba market or Ipori to go and make sure that the copies are being regulated. They're going to try, but they're not going to be able to force us to obey. And so if big brands, fashion houses, big furniture brands are still struggling with counterfeits of their products, I think there's only so much that Nigeria itself can do. I think that Nigerians, we need to just be a bit more original, like Remy said earlier, and stop copying.
All right, thank you very much. Please, a big round of applause for my wonderful speakers, Malik, Remy, and Adewumi. They've been amazing, and you guys have been amazing, very interactive. I love that so much. Please keep clapping for them as they're taking their photos. All right, we'll take a group picture and we'll get ready for the immersive kitchen experience. All right. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please, a round